So are there any particular settings here I should be changing at all?
Well, I definitely would suggest setting the military to very hard.
Yeah.
I'd even be fine with the economy on very hard. Diplomacy. Obviously, going very hard means we can't really get any allies.
Yeah, just leave diplomacy normal is fine.
Yeah, normal. I like the normal diplomacy because then you can actually play the diplomatic game at times.
Is there a pleb difficulty here? Or?
I don't think so. Yeah, other than that, I think we're fine.
Isn't Shattered World cheating on the multiplayer stability? I have no idea because I didn't make this game.
What was the question?
Isn't Shattered World cheating on the multiplayer for stability? I think is what they're asking. Which I would think no, because there's more players on the map now. There's just more the AI has to do.
And we haven't, in terms of the connectivity, obviously we keep trying to improve the multiplayer connectivity, but we've seen difficulties across every era map.
It hasn't seemed to be specific to more regions, less regions, lower tech, higher tech. Often it's been networking issues that are more technical than design. But to be clear, the AI doesn't cheat. We've talked about that for many, many years, that the AI in the game doesn't know anything that you don't know, that it hasn't seen through spotting, it isn't buffed in any way. The difficulty levels do change how intelligent
it is. That when the military is set very hard, it will use military tactics that it will simply not use at a normal difficulty level. So, but to me, that's not cheating. That's just you make it smarter or dumber. Okay, so I should take a look at my region. Hey, I start with $10 billion. That's not bad.
So the format of this, I take it, is that you guys are totally cool. Obviously, we're taking questions from my community. Should they throw them out?
Oh yeah,
answering them.
That would be great.
And we definitely appreciate. Obviously, you're used to doing live streaming. I'm gonna have a hard time running and chewing gum. If you want to feed me questions while we're playing, I am perfectly fine.
Yeah. So where is Chris again? Oh, okay. Just asking for a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a thing. Yeah. Oh, yes. You're very generous, yes.
World start before like this, like in the U.S. So I got to see what
I know
got going on
California
here.
starts with some carriers, and I think I actually get a bit of that as well. Oops, I'm jumping too far around my map. So obviously you see, now I have a technical question because I'm going to ask Eric. So we're streaming this as well. That players, if they log in, but we're not streaming George's computer. So if they follow Bob's stream, they can watch Bob's region, and if they follow BattleGoat's stream, they can watch my region.
And nobody sees me.
Nobody gets to see George's except the things I can stare at from my desk. He's doing some diplomacy thing with some other state.
Would I do anything sneaky ever?
Huh.
Let's
see what I can tell my minister to do.
You know that one thing that California is definitely known for is having a lot of oil production. So we're going to totally do some upgraded petrol generation. Which, if you can't pick up on it, that was totally sarcasm. It's like illegal to produce energy there in California. Right?
Oh, really? I was unaware of that. I know that.
Yeah, I kind of just. I mean, the whole
environmental laws.
Well, exactly. There's a lot of like the whole West Coast is kind of that way, where renewables and non-pollutant energy is definitely the way to go.
Right. So yeah,
things like that.
Petroleum reserves in New York, and of course we're Canadians, so I'm pretty sure to a lot of your guests that makes us socialists. So.
Clearly, I'll win this game because I'm a U.S. citizen myself. I live in Washington State, so my born knowledge of the U.S. will certainly see me through this game.
Well, no, don't worry. We will actually fight and attack you. We'll just apologize for each attack.
Oh, okay.
So if I order
I'll feel better, of course.
If I order these F-35s, will they take twice as long and cost twice as much as it says they will?
But they may crash.
I think I heard George through Christian's thing there.
If he did. So we had tried to mute... Eric, did we mute the wrong thing?
Oh, have I been muted? Eric's.
No, you're not muted.
Yeah.
So you should be hearing George through his mic. And
Right, so it sounded like
it's
it
going to
was
pick
being
up.
picked
Yeah.
up through yours as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are a bit close. It is going to pick up some of his voice.
That's okay. I'm not going to be that fussed by it. I just that George now sounds like the board.
No, there I had it. Right,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to go in. I needed to show
Resistance
obsolete,
is not recommended.
replaced. No. That's what I wanted to do. And military air designs. That's what I was after.
Actually, yeah. What kind of fighters do I have here as California? Do we all have the same things? I have F-22 Raptor.
No, we'll each have different things.
Cool.
What do I want? I think
So does Nevada then get like alien tech because Area 51?
but you can't discover it. It's there, but it's hidden.
Damn it. Damn. Okay, well, what can I research then? As far as cool new things here.
I was supposed to.
It will
Not
for this one.
do a bit of trading for the things I'm looking for. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Somebody has the tech I'm after.
Okay.
Oh, and I guess I'm also on a camera.
Can people still hear me?
Totally forgot that.
I can hear you, George.
Okay. Because Eric was just changing every audio setting I could see.
Oh well. Just gonna do this the hard way.
Time for me to make more friends.
Everybody around me likes me, except for Washington State. Why do you not like me, Washington?
That's what I'm after.
Well, sometimes.
So I did want that.
But we're so friendly in Washington. Actually, no, that's not true. I lived in Pittsburgh for a couple of years, and I hated everybody in Pittsburgh afterwards. So
Well, who doesn't?
I'll turn off my weather. I don't think that's going to impact too much right now. Let's check what the neighborhood looks like.
Making friends and influencing people.
Like that.
So Christian and George, you guys saw my video I posted of the lag that I experienced with another YouTuber friend of mine in the sports channel on Discord. So any kind of inklings on what might have been going on there?
I don't think I've shown it to George yet. Initially, no, not really sure what caused that. It was definitely significant. We haven't run into that, and it's one of the things that now that we've got a slightly larger team, we have the opportunity to do a bit more participation in multiplayer test games and interact with the community. And we've definitely gotten to see some, it's one of those results may vary. Oh, 2 seconds, sorry. Brad, could you write down for me that Indiana's leader is a white bloc? So one of the examples, if you take a look, for some reason Indiana's leader, like...
One of the German states is like that too. Yeah, Southern Germany is that way too.
Southern Germany as well.
Had it when they're old white blocks running people.
So we've definitely seen that results may vary, because during one of the test games, one of our staff, Dylan, tried to join, or I don't remember exactly who it was, but somebody was trying to join a test game, and somebody from the community, when they could join, the speed of the game was painfully slow, and was just causing all sorts of problems, and ultimately the group, I believe, ended up kicking that player out, and everything ran fine. So Dylan sort of said back to that community member, okay, I know that you'd like to try, I'll do a little bit of testing with you. And when Dylan did an entirely different test with that user and one other user, there were no performance problems. So I don't know if George has any comments on how, in a global world of people trying to multiplayer game this, multiple players, multiple nations, how do we deal with the instability that causes?
I mean, it's always... unfortunately, some people's connectivity and so on is just going to have issues. Maybe it's a network, a NAT issue in between. Maybe there's just something weird about an ISP somewhere along the line. I mean, it's really hard to debug and figure out what those issues are.
I definitely know that as I said, with the team being bigger, we have more opportunity to do multiplayer testing, and I've been wanting to take that as an opportunity to try and encourage the community as well. That if we can participate a little bit.
A NATO Cold War game with the same number of people as 4 people, including myself, and that was a fairly stable experience as well.
Anything outside of that, though, nothing but problems.
Okay.
Yeah, and obviously we know the community is still there, and we'd like to support it as much as we can. There's never enough time to work on everything that we want to.
Yeah, so certainly with the sync issues, I'm hoping both the fact that we fixed the oddity with the Trump Rising DLC that caused some issues, plus we even caught a difficult sync problem that could happen between people running different versions of Windows or different CPUs, and so that too might be another rare one that might solve some issues. So hopefully with those, it ends up improving even further some of the multiplayer sync elements. I mean, we made a big step forward on that when we switched to the Steam multiplayer last year.
Yeah, being able to match up through Steam is definitely something I was glad to see at the
I'd like to mention that my stream is getting a kick out of Lizard Man George right now. It's an alien joke, is what it is. Lizard people taking over the government. Because of the double voice thing going on. I don't really care about it. You guys obviously, are having some difficulty. That's fine, but I'm not going to slam you for it. I have my difficulties too.
Yeah, and again, some of these things like doing live streams is something that we've not done in the past, but we've got the really new studio, we've got the ability to do some of this. We figure that it's worth a little bit of time interacting with the community, especially, obviously, we're building up for the fact that we have the project in the works that I unfortunately can't say a whole lot about yet.
Everybody, there's this thing they're working on, but you can't tell me what it is.
Yep.
Sorry. Feel bad doing that.
What am I playing? I'm playing as California right now. Then we have George as Texas, and we have Christian as New York. Yeah, this is the Shattered World start for Supreme Ruler, so a lot of the countries have been split up into smaller parts. And the United States is all the states, and we're in the United States. Or both states, I suppose.
Yeah. What to build?
I would think anti-Georgians might be on your list, given the performance of the Egyptian Israeli.
Already chewed through a good amount of money.
What's the supply situation in California? Not as much as I'd like. See, if I could be more like a New York or a Texas, that'd be great.
Texas.
So when you live stream these things, do you talk much to your players about the logic of what you're doing? Like, I feel tempted to just start going, oh, by the way, I'm building some industrial goods plants, and I'm going to add a power plant because I figure that's going to up my power demand, and I should see what my coal capacity is if I've got a lot of coal power plants. When you do live
It
streams,
depends
how
on
much
what
of
I'm
that
doing. If it's a multiplayer thing, I'll typically be conversing and trash talking the other players that I'm with. Considering you guys are devs, I'm not doing that right now, and quite frankly, because I think George just come over here and kick my ass if I did that. So I'll abstain from that part of it at least. But if I'm playing by myself, it's just audience interaction, answering their questions, chatting about various other things that are going on. I mean, it's going to be a different beast between me who's not a game developer streaming the game versus you guys streaming the game, because I think there's already an assumption of, hey, you guys are here to answer questions about the game, because that's just kind of what I've noticed to be the kind of the industry standard is when the devs are streaming the game, they're more about here's our product, and we're going to talk about our product and answer questions about our product.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Hey, who stole all of my money? Where did all my money go?
What was that for? India's declared war on Pakistan. One of my events worked.
It sounds like a geopolitical problem that I'm not concerned with.
I used to have a lot of money.
It's far enough
now I
away.
have no money. Oh, I guess I did stuff.
I mean, I can't say I've got my finger on the pulse of like the Supreme Ruler community or anything like that. I know that actually here's a little bit of a story for you guys on Supreme Ruler and how I got into it. So I was actually initially pointed to this game by another YouTuber friend of mine called Commissar Roach, and he's like, "Hey Bob, I've got a game for you that you probably like." I'm like, "Sure, lay it on me." And Supreme Ruler, so I bought the game, and I tried to check it out. I tried playing the what was it? It was the tutorial had me in China, I think, just before the Japanese invasion of World War II. I think is what it was laid out to be.
Yeah.
And I was, despite going through the tutorial and trying to play my own game, I was still confused as to what on earth was going on. Like, no idea. I actually ended up returning it on those grounds. I ended up returning the game. Because I was like, I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't feel like I had the patience to try to figure it out. It was actually a couple months later that I was like, I want a new game here besides what I've been playing. Like, there's all the Paradox titles I've been playing. I wonder if there's anything else. And then Supreme Ruler came up again on my feed. I was like, sure, I'll give it another try. Let's see if there's a tutorial out there. So shout out to my man, Average Gamer, for his tutorial, because his tutorial is the only reason that I'm actually able to play Supreme Ruler to this day.
Nice.
I suppose I should spend a bit more time paying attention to his tutorials, checking them out to see what exact skills he's finding the need to show.
Well, a lot of it is simply UI navigation, explaining the concept. If you sat down a player that, even if they played like something like Europa Universalis 4 or Hearts of Iron, and you sat them down in front of this UI, they wouldn't necessarily know what was going on the screen. And that's a pretty common comment I get on my Supreme Ruler series, is that I don't understand what's happening on the screen. So I completely sympathize with that, just given the experience I had initially with Supreme Ruler. But I really enjoy Supreme Ruler now that I understand how to play the game. So, which I suspect would be the case with a lot of people, if they understood kind of what was happening. Like, because your guys' tutorial is a little, I would say a little bare, and it doesn't explain some of the deeper stuff. Like, it shows you how to move around units and stuff, which is good. It kind of goes over the economy stuff kind of at a glance, but doesn't go into it too in depth, which for a game that is very economic centric, a much larger primer on here's how the economy functions, I think would be pretty beneficial.
Right. Yeah. And I definitely know that we have a lot of stuff that's buried, and even just the fact that we have tooltips, and in some cases we have tooltips that you can move the mouse into the tooltip to get a tooltip on an icon in the tooltip, because there's sometimes no other way. And we have talked a lot about tutorials over the years, that during the development of Supreme Ruler Cold War, we were unsatisfied with any of the ideas we come up with for tooltips, and the decision was to do tutorial videos, that we had a sequence of, I think it was something like a dozen of these 3-minute tutorials, video tutorials, that we posted links to them that you could, from the main menu, it would launch you to the website to view those tutorials. But that did not get well received, and ultimately was seen as insufficient. So it's that constant quest for how best to communicate a very in-depth game. There's very few games out there where you're going to be checking the unemployment inflation rates of your region. So, and then of course we get other comments. That we had just another one on the forum the other day of somebody who was saying, hey, it'd be really cool if your missile inventories were divided into 3. So instead of a boat having one inventory and a maximum missile size, it should have an inventory for each of 3 sizes. And as I commented back on the forum, I'm like, I appreciate the suggestion, but it's just going to add complexity. And missiles themselves are an element that we've always felt is on, like, we really wanted them in there, but that's really as complex as we're going to go, because just loading missiles and getting them firing is a chore. But we haven't found any better ways to do that. Constant struggles. and I say all that and I'm like, wow, first world problem. I don't know how to make my players play the game better. Oh well. I should see what my inventory of stuff is. I should also be, every time I play nowadays, I want to watch for any more of Neri's models. That he's done a heck of a job adding new models with new skins.
There's an uncomfortable number of Texan troops on the march somewhere.
I was trying to think, how can we, like, bottle George in?
They're tourists, not troops.
They're tourists. There's nothing to see in the southeast of the country.
Well, that's why they're leaving it.
I would say definitely that in Supreme Ruler's favor that the economic model of Christian disconnected. You guys still hear me?
I'm
Hello?
still there.
Oh,
Maybe it was something to do with the laptop.
Says you disconnected on my screen.
That is very strange. Are we still... I'm going to try and change the time.
no, I think you have... Whoop, I saw the time change.
What? Oh, yeah. No, I'm not getting any more motion on my screen. Okay, I should just do this.
How does it feel, George and Christian? How's it feel?
Oh, noes.
Experience my pain.
Sucks even more when you're a developer. You know?
Player 2
I
disconnected.
do seem to be, and I didn't touch any wires.
Well, you're still better on
because Steam is giving me a hard time. Oh my gosh. No, this isn't us. My Steam just notified me that I've been logged out because I logged in somewhere else. My kid just got home from school.
Yeah, there you go. So yes, unfortunately, as a dev, we can't prevent family issues.
Sorry, I missed what you said there, George.
Oh, nothing important. But anyway, so you can.
We'll say my chat is very much enjoying this moment right now.
Yes, but it isn't the game. I got bumped by another user.
Not the game.
It is
My
Steam.
kid took my account.
It is Steam.
We'll still have to reconnect Supreme Ruler, but yeah.
Okay,
you
so
can connect to your
I don't know
Steam
if we were
account.
all set to be autosaved. If we all had the daily autosaves turned on, we can actually just pick up from the last autosave.
Oh, that's true.
But it's only if
Okay,
we all
let me
had
see.
it
My
turned on.
options, files, save game.
I mean, I had
Steam
auto.
Cloud
Oh, actually, I only had
autosave
autosave
every
every
7.
7 days, so we can go back 1
Could
week.
you, Bob, in your player options files, autosave every X days? What's yours set to?
Player options where? I'm sorry.
Player options, files.
Files. Autosave every 7 days.
Okay, so we were all set to set every 7 days. So if I close out, okay, I might as well quit since I've been disconnected. But we should theoretically be able to pick back up from our autosave, yes? Okay. Oop. How do I do... What is going on here? Okay.
I think I've got the right save.
Yeah, let me see if I can find the number for it. It should be.
I can log in if you want though.
Hang on 2 seconds.
Yeah, it should have.
Do you want
want
to kill the stream before you type your password in?
88349.
Or pause the stream? Is there any way to obscure the stream for a moment?
It's not being watched right now.
I got it.
Okay.
I found it.
Thank you. Okay, 2 seconds while I get somebody else to log into an account here. I will be off the audio for just a second.
Would be nice to also have a load save option in the lobby. Isn't that what this is here? The save game portion that I'm looking at?
Yeah, if you've clicked over to as host, yeah, you get the save game and then it shows you all the multiplayer saves, yeah. The one thing that's been on the development list like nearly forever, but is still certainly a thing we want to do is also having the ability for the host to push out the game to players. In the early days, it wasn't viable because the games were so large and the internet was so slow. But now, with internet speeds, it would only take 30 seconds to a minute, and therefore becomes a much more reasonable option to have the host push out the game to and not have to have synchronized save games or things like that.
Gotcha. I think that's what they were kind of asking. I think actually now that they clarified.
Yeah, I mean at the moment, if you wanted a game to have be multiplayer and it wasn't fresh start, you had to share that file with everybody. If it was a modded game, you had to share all the files, the cache, and everything with everybody. So yeah, the idea is to be able to have hosts push out modded games or save games or whatever, and then have all the clients grab them. And it is something we are going to be adding more development time to.
Is that you, Christian?
Yes, it seems I got a name change when I changed which Steam account I was using. I'm on Eric's account now. But yes, that's me.
But remember, he's new name. He's still just as evil.
Dear me.
So this will be another good test, reconnecting a multiplayer save game.
This was just Chris's attempt to not get killed.
Hey, we're back.
Let's see here.
I'm still missing.
Right. What was I
Oh,
doing?
we're missing you still? Well, this is back to when I had no money. I already fixed that problem once.
That's true. Sorry, because it's set to autosave every 7 days, we could have lost as much as 6.5 days.
Now I have to make more friends, raise more money.
Oh, yeah. Wonder if I'd finished queuing stuff up.
Who's that, Indian? No, who's that?
Manchuria and Tibet.
Of course, everyone hates Tibet, right? All those peace-loving prayer guys.
Utah hates me. I thought the Mormons were friendly people.
Well, only to a certain
Maybe when the U.S. broke up, the Mormons lost control. They've been kicked out.
The Mormons lost control.
What was I going to check? Oh, right. That's what I wanted to check. Was...
Yeah, everyone who's in the chat who's currently watching on my end, if you guys do have some questions for Christian or George, by all means, lay them down. I will ask.
And obviously on our stream as well. I'm assuming that Eric is watching our stream for any questions. Are you watching our stream? If we can, okay, you'll let me know if we have questions.
Oh,
Do we
jeez,
have
since
people
we
following our
restarted,
stream?
I'm getting more diplomatic offers. That's interesting.
Yes. Multiplayer over TCP/IP. No thanks. Who have I not made friends with yet? Oh, there's another one.
Everyone's heard of the San Diego coal mines, right? Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah,
I
very
have.
famous, yes.
Some of these regions look like they want to be my friend, but they say no.
So just to be clear for everyone who is just tuning in or wasn't clear on it earlier, there was an insider build that was available or is still currently available on Steam that does have the multiplayer sync thingamabob for Trump Rising fixed, or has that been pushed out already?
It has been pushed out. So whether people are using the current live build or the insider build, they are using exactly the same set of files.
Gotcha.
We put it out, I guess, just before the weekend as an insider build, and then watched some of the reaction over the weekend. There was an issue around a mesh or two that was missing that I believe we pushed on hotkeys, that we did a quick hot fix for that. But generally the response was good, so we decided to click that live as of this week. The big thing we're looking at right now, somebody also noticed that for two of the caches, I think Trump Rising and... what was the other one? Make America Great. For both of those, we had a problem with our equipment file where carrier's capacity was always 1 if they had a capacity. We're looking at a fix for that should get pushed out before the next notable update. But we are already working on another update, that as well as the development on the new project, the bigger team size is allowing us to continue to do more stuff for SR.
Montana is now also a white block. Or, well, it is a white block for the leader portrait, FYI.
Sounds like what?
So Eric just informed me that something with our stream is causing me to sound like I've inhaled a whole bunch of helium.
You sound normal to me. No, that sounds hilarious. It makes me want to go watch.
Well, this is going to get put onto the internet, so there will forever be record of me. You think it's Discord, but Bob says he hears me just fine.
Oh.
On our stream, it sounds fine. Bob says on his Discord, I sound fine. Yeah, George? Can you? Oh no, we've muted each other.
Yeah.
So you're just freaking me out for no reason. That's really what's going on.
Clearly, that's the answer.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks. This is how I'm going to get my strategy to work. Okay, I'm watching this patchwork of allies that I've got.
Gee, what are my relations throughout the world right now here?
I'm waiting for Europe to start causing some struggles. Usually in Shattered Worlds, one half of France will attack the other half, or one half of Germany, 1/3 of Germany will go after another part.
So I have another question from my chat here.
Sure.
And I think this might be actually a larger question with regards to AI pathfinding.
Mm-hmm.
The verbatim question is, there's also still a bug in with the Cold War game where France gets its units killed in Russia, and
the pathing
what that's in relation.
So
yeah,
and I know
they're trying to get to Vietnam through like.
I know I'm gonna
Yeah.
drive people crazy when I try and do the semantics of saying that's less a bug and more a limitation. That the pathing model that was created for the game is quite powerful, can be seen working very well in quite a number of places. However, the world is built in such an awkward way that there are a few bottlenecks that, as strong as we've made the pathing code, it just gets stuck in a few places. Not to say we've given up on finding a solution for that, but what's happening is that it's units trying to path across so many hexes that the calculation simply can't be done. George, did I explain that properly?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the longer a path is with a more tricky coastline, that's a big performance issue. And in fact, sometimes you'll notice that the game will take a pause as and for a few seconds, and that's probably because some region in the world has decided to path a large number of units a long distance. Somebody's shooting at me. Why would they do that? Seems a little unnice.
I think it's an appropriate response to your presence.
Big meanie face Texas.
Yeah, why would somebody?
Another question. Also, how about some air-to-air missiles? And I think that's already actually done through the attack values for aircraft.
Exactly. Yeah, air-to-air missiles will not be added to the game. The logic that we've used for what is a missile unit versus what is not is two criteria really used. First, can it reasonably be intercepted? Air-to-air missiles have sufficient speed and used at sufficient ranges. You look at something like the Phoenix missiles off the F-14s, I think, were always our really long-range attacking units. Those missiles, either they hit or they don't. They don't get intercepted. I'm sure there's chafe and there's a few things like that, but either they hit or they don't. Whereas when you're talking about a Harpoon anti-ship missile, that may be shot down by the target ship's air defense systems. So it becomes worthwhile having that missile as an individual unit. Same sort of thing with nuclear weapons, is that we can't really integrate the nuclear attack capability onto an Ohio submarine. It needs to be something that has a very limited controlled inventory that you can only do a certain number of times. I cannot find any reasonable argument for making air-to-air missiles an inventory different than the attack value of the plane. There's quite a number of planes that if we made air-to-air missile units, then the air units would have a 0 attack value, or maybe an attack value of 2, because they have a small main gun, but nowadays most aircraft are missile attacks. I'm sure I am not a military person. I'm sure a couple of people are going to rip me apart for my lack of knowledge there. But as a general standpoint, the model that we've done fits those constraints that I've set of if it can be intercepted or if it needs a limited quantity, it makes sense to have it as a missile unit. Adding air-to-air missiles, we just feel it would add complexity for no gain in gameplay.
No, I follow you, and I agree with that.
Yeah. Like I said, for anybody watching the stream on mine, because we've had this question before, how do you launch nukes? So people are watching my screen now. So let's say I've decided, let's go to my defense.
Nuke Canada.
So I can see my deployed. No, I'm going to want.
It's just a land tab that has
reserved.
the strategic target.
So let's see what I've got. I don't even have any nuclear capable missiles, but let's pretend one of these Arleigh Burkes was an Ohio class submarine that I know can fire a nuke. So I'm going to deploy that boat, get it somewhere into my supplied area. So now I've got this boat that could hold missiles. With it selected, I can bring up the missile tab and I can see what I've got that's naval launched. I have harpoons, I have tomahawks. One of those was nuclear, I could take these, and I could say, load up one of my missiles. And now I have one missile loaded. But then if it was nuclear, you have to still go to the defense production, alert condition, and you have to do the little nuclear weapon permission turned on. Then you could take your boat that has the missile, select it, right-click on an enemy, oh, come back here, select the unit. If I control right-click on another region that was an enemy, I would have an option in that list to fire missile. But it's just so many steps just to fire a missile. Missiles are complex because they need to be, but that means we want to reduce how many things are missiles. That was a very long answer. Haha, another potential ally. Another potential shield from George.
Arkansas doesn't have a very nice looking flag. They should work on that.
I like how you're just going to go around insulting the culture of various states. Let's see how many enemies George can make outside of the game.
I mean, their flag even it says
if
Arkansas
someone's rolling
right on
down
it.
my,
I mean, what's the point with
if
that?
if someone's rolling down my street in M1A1 Abrams flinging insults, I don't think I'd argue with them either.
So I don't know if you're allied with West Virginia, Bob, but the like majority of the Texan army is currently parked. Where's the city? Near.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm aware of the current disposition and position of the Texan army.
Oh, I bet you I still got my AI controlling some stuff here. No, I don't. Where's all my units? Oh, I'm like, I deployed everything. Right, just before we disconnected. Let's crank up some spending. Get what I was after. No. So many things I was doing before we disconnected. That's what I was after.
Oh, here's a I suppose a nitpicky thing for you guys as well, which is so modern start, United Kingdom. Why do the nukes not fit on the nuclear submarines?
That's an interesting question. Why don't they?
Because that drove me nuts when I started my UK game.
If anybody listening to the stream would be so kind as to start a thread on the BG forums for that, it's definitely something I'd be happy to double check. The first question would be, and this does happen sometimes when we model the real world, is it's very possible that the United Kingdom today has an inventory of missiles for which they've retired the submarines on which they fit. That can actually be a thing. But I'm not sure if that's the case. It is quite possible that, and again, it's one of those where we might have at one point set up the inventory and then made changes to the equipment file and inadvertently got them out of sync. Like we decided, oh, that missile, it's a little more substantial than what we had. We should make that bigger, and not realizing that we suddenly made it not fit on the platform.
I see.
But let's hope that we didn't do that.
So I think Eric had a question from our stream. It is being investigated. It was at least a double upscaling was one that I had started working on, and once it rises in the priority list, we'll be looking at. Other scalings have issues about making the fonts very difficult to read, and so we have to look at that. But a double the UI size scaling for 4K screens is something that is on the short list.
What was the question? Just so my stream is aware of what it was.
The 4K scaling for screen resolutions. That's what it was, George?
Yeah, so I mean the UI, if you're running at like a Retina style or a high DPI display, the UI can be pretty small in the corner. It gives you a lot of map room, but it makes it really hard to see and click on the UI objects because they are physically quite small on 4K screens.
I was looking for. Oh, that's probably a good choice. change that?
It says you changed it.
Change that. I should also.
Okay, let's see. How are my ministers doing? Okay, you're doing good. You're sort of doing good.
Who's doing something? Texas declared war on Pennsylvania.
I support that action because the hell with Pennsylvania.
I'm going to condemn that. War is bad.
Oh, they have planes. Of course they do. Who gave them planes?
Biggest thing I want is to be able to cut to colonies and release nations in multiplayer. Release colonies and stuff in multiplayer.
Liberate and colonize in multiplayer. It's actually really conquer. The problem is that creates a massive number of sync issues. Sorry, I'm just going to take a moment to turn down my sounds here. There's my battle sounds. There we go. So George, am I correct in my comment there that
yes, some of those things we were able to accomplish because we played a little fast and loose with the synchronization rules, because the game operates in a heavily multi-threaded way, and some of that supports multiplayer synchronization, and so we sort of had to cheat a little bit about that to do things that weren't really intended to be done in the game, and they are much more difficult to do in multiplayer because it would cause synchronization problems.
Okay, now I did slow it down on purpose.
Pittsburgh is mine.
Yes, flee before me, Mormons.
Oh, those aren't mine. My flag and Pennsylvania's flag are annoyingly similar.
You should be annoyed by anything, Pennsylvania, quite frankly.
I've never been there. I'm sure they're all lovely people. I'll let George make enemies in the world.
Now, my wife and I moved there a couple years ago because the cost of living was lower. Well, there's a reason cost of living is lower in some places. So.
Yeah. China on Hong Kong, or northern China on Hong Kong.
How long that's gonna take?
My money is down on the hole. Yeah, it's California. Let's see here. Actually, I really just declared war on Utah just to declare war. Do they have anything I want? Do they have any oil? They have a little bit of oil. They got some coal. That's good. They got some metal ores. Very little wood. Any rubber? No. Nothing like that. Well, I suppose we'll do.
There's one of Mary's models. Nice texture. Oh. Whoa. I think we gave George a bit too much army.
Too much army? There's no such thing as too much army.
Yeah. Can you ever have too much army? Oh, what? Jesus. Stop.
Wait a minute. Is New York flowing into the defense of Pennsylvania?
They're my ally. It's either fight George in
Oh.
Pennsylvania or fight George in New York. Have you got California units in there too, or are you just... No, you're just watching.
I'm just watching. I may or may not be allied to both of you.
I did notice that.
Figured I'd sit here and wait to see who reigns supreme in that particular contest. Let's see here. So what are some tips that you guys would put to new players then of the Supreme Ruler series, considering you guys are the devs?
Well, I can give an example of what I'm doing right now, is that instead of getting directly into a conflict, I'm fighting a war by proxy. So because I'm allied and have mutual defense with Pennsylvania, I can move through their territory. I will attack, while I'm in their territory, I will attack any of their enemies, but I'm not actually at war. So, and I can still end up expending a lot of goods fighting. That's one of the things that a lot of players can get taken off guard by, is that the amount of military goods you end up using up once your units start firing, particularly your artillery, can be quite significant, and players are often not really prepared for the cost of the war. So, which is of course one of the things we've always been pretty proud of in terms of what the game simulates, is that we like the fact that it reminds people that conflict isn't free, that soldiers need to get paid, bullets need to get made, all sorts of things like that. That'd be the first thought I'd have. And they should probably not do what Pennsylvania is doing, which is sending pieces one at a time against very large forces. I suspect the problem here for Pennsylvania is they don't have a sufficiently large force to do much.
Easy pickings. Oh, that's yeah. You're supplying Pennsylvania. That's why I'm having this issue with supply up here. So I'm going. I should have easily had Pennsylvania taken in large swaths through supply, but no, New York is resupplying them, so it's causing me some supply grief here.
I started checking do they have enough rubber? Do they have enough petroleum for their tanks? And just start feeding the military, because that's also a good thing to do, is if you see somebody attacking a weaker opponent, do everything you can to make their opponent stronger. Just start feeding them. So like right now I'm just gonna go, hey look, Pennsylvania seems to be running short on military goods. I've got a surplus, so let's just provide them. Oh no, I was gonna do that as well. Let's give them a chunk of industrial goods, a bunch of technologies, and ask for nothing in return. Just out of the kindness of my heart.
Yes, because your heart is so kind. Yes.
I'm trying to decide where to do these things.
So let's get more technical on the AI pathing part of things, or actually let's talk a little more broadly about how the AI makes decisions in Supreme Ruler. So how is that accomplished? That may seem like a very
totally to George.
That may be a very, very big, broad question, but that's because I'm not a game programmer. So
yeah, I was going to say that is a pretty broad question. I mean, one of the things is the AI actually in Supreme Ruler is done in multiple layers. And what happens is there is a separate AI that runs at the unit layer. So each unit will look around its own situation. Will look around and decide, is there opportunities or threats and so on. Then units will also respond to regional elements that are usually triggered. Actually, the AI uses the internal hotspot system. It uses that for itself too. So where it needs to support other units, or where it needs to provide some sort of response. And then there's the HQ AI, the headquarters AI, which will determine major actions such as attacking at along a certain front, launching a naval invasion, things like that. And so that's coordinated from the top down, and then units that are available or have lower priority duties will then make themselves available for those larger plans that the HQ AI has. So the three layers sort of work together to determine a big picture view. Do we want to do a naval invasion? Do we need to protect against some sort of border attack? And then units that either have high or low priority things that they do on their own.
So how does the AI decide to sort threats to the world, or to its own stability and such? Like, say I'm, the UK, and I have declared war on several nations that are like in Africa, for instance. Like I'm building a colonial empire, for example. Does the AI not take that into consideration, or how does it decide that I am threatening it, or I am a threat to global peace, or however you want to phrase it?
I mean, yeah, and in fact, there are a number of internal variables that are, and a lot of them are even available to see for all players. Things like the integrity level, things like treaty integrity, or the overall world market opinion. Those are tracked as players do either good and or bad things, and those things can result in the AI then having an opinion. Also, how a region is relating to the other friends of the region. When you're using a map that has the spheres, then regions that are in your sphere will be more actively or more looked at in a more friendly way than those that aren't. But also, the regions, if somebody's an enemy of your friend, then that's going to have a major effect as well. So a lot of those things all weigh together, but a lot of factors that when you have this thing of, well, how come the AI didn't respond to my offer favorably and things like that, take a look at your treaty integrity, take a look at what your relationships are with the friends of the particular region you're dealing with. Things like that will all have a major impact on how the AI will respond.
Okay, so I got another question from my chat here that I think this is another AI pathing question, but this has to do with supply. And this is specifically, why does the AI send masses of units into areas without supply, like Italy and Africa, or Germany and the USSR?
Well, it does that less than it used to. I mean, it is something that had been worked on. It is unfortunately still a thing that does happen in certain circumstances, probably when...
I think it begins from a motivation of its attempt to mop up, that it's always going to try and take a bit more of the land of an enemy that it neighbors.
Yeah, and there's mopping up. There's units. Sometimes, if you look at it over a short period of time, they only send like 1 or 2 units to do that. The problem is when you're looking at over a long period of time, those numbers can be much greater, and then that causes it to have this sort of weird effect of where it looks like it's just doing it too often. So it is something that we have attempted to make the AI definitely do less of. I think Pittsburgh needs a barracks right now. It's a pity they didn't have one.
I think you should dismantle Pittsburgh altogether.
Well, that is tempting, but...
Yeah, I think I would just mention to everybody who are asking questions about the AI, just to kind of, and this is something I've mentioned and certainly playing the games that I've played on my channel and stream all that kind of stuff, is that there is no perfect AI in any of the games that you do come across, especially when you start getting the complexity of a lot of the strategy games that I play on my channel anyway, is that the more variables you throw in there, the more dirt things the AI could potentially do, and you can only anticipate so many things, and then there'll be the live exercise of watching the AI do things and go, why is the AI doing that? And that's all just going to be simply giving feedback to the devs. Hey, this is the AI is doing this. The devs going, hey, okay, well, how do we fix this? What's it do? What are the variables here that are causing it to do that?
And one of the things about, two issues we have with our AI is, number one is that sometimes, especially when it has incomplete information, because it doesn't, cheat, so it only has the visibility that it has from its own spotting and so on, its own experiences. So that means it doesn't have necessarily the ability to know exactly what the layout of the world is. It would be the same way with a human would. But the other thing that it does do is sometimes just out of the blue, it will try different things. I mean, that's both meant to give the player more interesting results, and sometimes, those surprises, are successful, and sometimes they just look like the most stupid thing ever. That's a strategy. If it's successful, is brilliant, and if it's unsuccessful, is stupid. But it could have been the same strategy either way.
One of the advantages that creates is where we've seen some players talking about, hey, I just saw the AI do a naval landing. So.
And the other thing is the AI does take into account, of the things that it does know, it does have takes into account a lot of information. And so sometimes, again, the player might not know why the AI did a certain thing when it has certain information that might not have been clear to the player in the first place.
That's a good point.
And right now, my biggest problem is that I was horribly ill-supplied for Pennsylvania.
I'm telling you, Pennsylvania is not a good place to be. It's like no one listens to me when I say that, but no, they go there anyway.
I'm finding it lovely. Trees, hills, roads.
Yes, and definitely in moving
don't drink the water.
From west to east, as I simply outran my supply lines, and then guys ran out of bullets, and things got a little ugly.
Texas runs out of bullets? No way.
Well, I couldn't get them up to the guys in Pennsylvania, so that's lost some mighty fine men up there.
I've got some more questions here for you guys, starting to stack up a little bit. Is autarky actually a pragmatic route to take in Supreme Ruler?
At the risk of showing myself with a degree of ignorance, what's autarky? I'm assuming it's a discipline in how you choose to approach governing a country.
Let me bust out my phone here.
Yeah.
Oh, my wife tried to call me. That's too bad.
Too bad.
At least she didn't knock you off your Steam account.
That's true. No, wait, don't you guys have like a rep or something like that can look this stuff up for you? Why am I doing it?
Eric, look up autarky for me. Tell me what it is.
Why am I doing it?
Yeah, I got plebes.
No one works for me.
Oh, pause.
Economic independence or self-sufficiency.
Sorry, say that again? I have tended not to take that approach when playing the game, that I'm far more likely to try and be self-sufficient in about a third of the commodities, or try and be self-sufficient in commodities that I think my enemy is going to need. Trying to be everything for everyone is not the approach that I would suggest.
You can definitely strive for it. I've played a number of modern Germany games where it's something you can certainly strive for, but just to simply keep the world economy going. Because if from what I've observed, anyways, if you do become completely self-sufficient, the AI will trade with itself, and the various countries will, flip resources back and forth to each other. The problem can come in though is if something becomes off kilter in your own economy, the whole house cards can come tumbling back down. So having something where you're exporting it or importing it, you're exporting this and importing that, having a few things in your economy just to make sure that your whole house cards doesn't come tumbling down is something that I would suggest doing. That's just from my experience playing so far.
And Chris just made the same mistake I did. He
totally to a worse effect, I think.
Yes, after I told him how I did the horrible thing of going way behind my supply lines, he just did the same thing.
And I was even grabbing like some transport helicopters, and I'm like, oh shoot, I'm going too far. I'm gonna get, and yeah, totally screwed that up.
See here, then I've got another question.
That's weird. Why did I let that guy get away?
So have you guys thought about adding, let me say this first. have they thought about doing economic blocks? I think that's in reference to something like the European Union, I think is what they're driving at maybe with that one.
Things like the European Union have been suggested, but again, we don't really want to make the game any more complex than it is right now.
OPEC. Okay, OPEC's another example that they've thrown out there.
Obviously, adding something like that, even if people dig through some of the data files that still exist within the game, every now and then they can spot a few things that we considered and then abandoned. That things like world market treaties, having nations discuss what they want to do in larger formats and stuff was something we had considered before, but had to abandon because, again, it added too much complexity. It didn't really help out the gameplay and a number of things like that. We're very much at this stage with the engine. If we see something we're like, oh, this would be a really good thing, it's really going to add to gameplay. If we want to put something in, we want to be equally taking something out. That we don't really want to make the game more complex than it sits right now. So, I have these two little anti-air walking guys who are like almost at the front lines going, wait for us, we'll help.
I used to have a navy. I wonder what happened to them. Well, they're somewhere. Where did I put them? What?
Let's see what it shows.
Well, where'd the Texan Navy go?
Oh, there's some
Iran and Pakistan.
some yellow-backed cowards are running away in transport ships. I mean, what the heck? Where are you guys
But
going?
you can't be brave. You don't have bullets.
Where are you guys going? Where did you come from? What are you? What's your problem?
I feel like you said it every time.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm listening through
I mean,
Would you like to be in George's army? Sure. You're in the Navy. Oh no.
I mean, who likes me anymore?
What's this? Sure. Oh. That was a very big airplane. KC-135 Stratotanker. I wonder if that model's a bit too big. What's my KC-10 look like? Should move this guy up.
Hell, actually, that's a stupid place to go. Well, no, it's not so bad.
Moving so slow.
But Rebel KR, I would certainly tell you, once we're able to do larger multiplayer games, I would definitely love to have that sort of stuff set up, like OPEC and all that kind of stuff. I think you could do it if you have the human element in there, because Supreme Ruler is already a pretty complex game.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that we're happy to create a game model that allows players to do more than the feature set. That certainly is. I'd love to see people go beyond.
It is such a robust game, and I really wish that more people played it.
We do too. We think everyone should play it.
Not biased response.
I'm forgetting how big a state New York is. I'm just really focusing on like the main areas, and I'll bet you I even have unused production. Oh, production.
Oh. Run away! Run away!
How's my economy doing? Oh, it's not going to get anywhere anytime soon. What was I looking for? Right. Do a bit of shopping. That's what I want.
Uh-oh, there's a metal ore shortage.
A horse shortage?
For me, there is.
If I rename my country like Weirdo Land,
George, do you carry over renaming a region to your colonies?
That probably you rename the region, but you didn't change. We don't change the prefix, so that could be something we can look into.
The prefix for your colonies is a fixed field in the data file.
What was the question?
So somebody noticed that if you are Germany and you conquer Belgium, it shows up as German Belgium. But if you then use the rename function and change Germany into Deutschland, Belgium still shows as German Belgium, that the prefix for your colony is not changed when you change your region name. But that'd be tricky because you're not changing, you don't want it to be Deutschland Belgium, like it's not Germany Belgium, it's German. Like the
so you'd have to
has some context to it. It's spelled a little differently.
Yeah, we'd have to let them create their own prefix too, which is not impossible. It's just a little niggly.
I'd love to know how you're going to generate the prefix for all those rude.
No, they'd have to give their own. So when you rename a region,
you'd
have two boxes to fill in.
Oh, okay. Let the player choose how rude they want to be with their names. Where do I want to
I have another question from my chat that this sounds kind of like perhaps a DLC question, given how it's phrased, but we'll give it a shot. Have you thought about adding areas like eastern Ukraine in the current day climate? I think that's a reference to how Russia invaded Ukraine, took the Crimea.
Short answer is yes, that we do try and pay attention to current events and try and tweak the map a little bit. The most obvious one is that as new leaders get elected in various countries, I'm told that Italy recently got a new leader who they lost almost as quickly.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But yeah, as leaders within the world change, we try and update that. As relationships change, we do try and make some updates to it. It is, of course, one of those things that you could spend forever developing that and still not have everybody covered. So, but yeah, if people have specific suggestions on how certain relationships should be tweaked, that's again when I start saying leave us a note on the forum, because our forums are often better than the Steam forums for two particular reasons. One, our forums have sections, as opposed to on Steam it's just one forum section for the game. The other thing that is unfortunate with the Steam forums is they don't have thread permanence. It's something like a maximum of 400 threads for a game. So once you have 400 threads there, if somebody starts a new thread, it's not the 401st, it becomes the 400th, and the first thread is simply discarded. So our forum, we have threads of discussions that go back 15 years that we can still search out and see, okay, what were people saying about that? What were some of the last decisions? So our forums definitely allow us to be more specific with our design decisions.
I forget which start it is now, but there's one start in there somewhere where Mr. Bean is in charge of the UK. How did that come about?
It was a internet vote that we asked the community what they wanted to see, and one of the options was to have Mr. Bean as the leader, and he got more votes than everybody else.
Huh. Interesting.
Hey, you destroyed one of my planes. It's not like they can... It's not like they grow on trees or anything.
But as far as the international diplomatic relations go, and country dispositions toward each other, I mean that's quite a task to put out there for you guys. Just one, pay attention to all the geopolitical happenings around the world to make sure things are accurate, and then two, I can only imagine that's also a bit of a challenge, given that you don't have like things like the EU in there, for example, to model that stuff on.
You'll also
or to help model that stuff.
Yeah, and you also get inconsistencies no matter what source you look at. Is that you're going to have some place that says, oh, Russia is a really good friend of the Ukraine. And then you have other sites who disagree with that vehemently.
I couldn't tell, given that they were shooting at them.
Yes. No, we like them a lot.
I'm no expert in geopolitics. We
like the land a lot. Here, I'm going to get myself in trouble. But yeah, it definitely poses challenges, but it's also some of the interesting stuff, that being able to recreate some of those world situations in the game, that's what makes it exciting developing something like this, is when you can accurately reproduce something.
So I know, like I suppose I'm a late comer to the Supreme Ruler series, since I started with Supreme Ruler Ultimate, and I didn't play any of the. I wasn't aware of the game really up until that point when it was pointed out to me. But as I understand it, water was a resource once upon a time instead of rubber. Do I have that right?
Yeah, and we still get a lot of people who talk about that decision, because the modern map. So the chronology of the series starts with Supreme Ruler 2010, which came out around 2005, and yeah, at the time. Water was a commodity, rubber was not. We then went on to develop Supreme Ruler Cold War. And George, do you remember? I think rubber only came in with 36, didn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I'm going to say that water and Cold War was where we saw that there was no impact. I don't remember if we changed at that point or if it took till 36. But with Supreme Ruler 1936, rubber in particular was necessary. That if you look at the world of 1936, water was not a commodity for which you would compete. Rubber was. So once we started developing for Supreme Ruler 1936, water went away to make room for rubber. During all of this, one of the things that we'd made sure of was when we moved the engine from modern to 1949, we made sure to take all the modern map files, and anytime the engine changed or our map editor changed, we brought the files in and did the conversions to those files, so we had a copy of them that was still functional. Same thing, Cold War to 1936, we took the modern files and the 49 files and made sure they were compatible. And all of that was what made Supreme Ruler Ultimate possible, to bring everything into one. But the issue is that the list of commodities is so intrinsic to the engine that you cannot make one engine that's going to support the 36 maps and the modern maps. So the decision had to be made between them, and by that point, the maps had been changed such that the water element was already gone from the modern maps. The data had been replaced with the data for the rubber. So it would have been massive work to try and transfer everything back, and would have simply screwed up all of the World War II maps. Whereas making rubber in the modern day scenarios, it's definitely not extremely significant, but in the modern maps, water never managed to be super significant anyway. The only way at this point that somebody could get water back into this would be essentially a total conversion, a entire another copy of the game on their own system, reskin the UI, readjust the data files so that rubber's properties are what water's properties were, and then change, and then editing the map to repaint all of the water resources that were put there. That the development effort that it would take is not really something that we've got the resources to devote to it, and water never really added that much to the modern maps anyway.
It didn't have a lot of gameplay value in my opinion.
I don't remember any game where George beat me because I didn't have enough water. Yeah. Design decisions can be a pain, but you do the best you can.
How dare you not get it right all the time for everybody all at once?
Yes. And there is, of course, the constant pressure that you're going to get one person on the forum saying, hey, I think you should do A, and somebody else saying, oh, don't do A, that's a horrible idea, do B. Ask 10 people, you'll get 10 opinions. So how's California going? I'm like all the way over on the side of the country. How's your country running? We're allied, and like you never send anything, you never ask, you never write. How's things going?
Well, you know, I mean, we're pretty happy with things right now. Do you need something though? I'm happy to give or sell you something.
I'm seeing that that Utah has been taken over. Oh, have you got a a rebel that spawned down
Well, there's a there's
You
a
got
little
guerrilla
sabotage
sabotage.
going- Yes, I did.
Whose units are those?
Yeah, we felt that it was more appropriate that the Mormon administration was replaced with something that was more West Coast friendly.
But I'm seeing Utah units.
Ooh, is that
George.
Utah?
Are you allied with Utah? No, everybody hates you.
I'm allied with. Well, I have lots of people.
Oh, but you're allied with California, so you should be able to see it. So hex location.
There's Nevada units.
Hex location 2 is. No, mine is showing me. Oh, it's probably showing me the loyalty that.
Yeah.
Right, it's telling me. This is what I'm looking for. Nevada. Never mind. I should probably learn to play the game. Totally looking in the wrong place in the interface there. Yes. Too many of these flags look exactly the same.
I think I've got a graphics question for you
Sure.
guys. What about models rather than one model for a few units? An example, the Tiger 3, I believe, is supposed to be an E-75, but is represented by a Russian tank model, or an E-50 looking like a Panther.
Oh, sorry. My phone just started ringing, and for some reason it was picking up all over the place. We created hundreds of models. Neri has added at least another 150, but our equipment file has 5,000 entries. There'd be an argument for having a unique model for everything, but it takes a lot of time to build a single 3D model. So you're talking a massive amount of resources, and it's also a performance hit every time we add another model. So we try and find reasonable abstractions, like find a tank, and we will favor purpose over appearance. That if a tank looks more like a Leopard tank, but is more the capabilities of a T-72, we're more likely to give it the T-72's model than give it the Leopard model. So hopefully that sort of answers what he's asking about.
I mean, it's all Greek to me as far as the model appearance goes, because I don't know a lot of those models. Personally, me off the top of my head, I'm more into the geopolitical part of the game myself.
Sure.
You know, with a lot of these games, strategy games that are like this anyway, whether it's EU4 or HOI4 or Supreme Ruler here. That's the part that I'm more excited by myself, and they're all weapons of war, just another tool for diplomacy.
Let's slow that down.
There's a little bit of aggro here between Texas and New York. Then you also have another person who bought the game just now, Neoist. Neiost. Neioast. Neiost. I don't know how to say that.
Oh, thank you.
Hong Kong was eliminated.
And they bought that based off of you guys talking about it just now. So there you go.
That's
Excellent.
About some, I think it was in
appreciate the
relation to one of the questions about, I think it was current events. Stancher 90. I do models as a hobby, so I know how hard the work is, i.e. 320 on a detailed vehicle. Well, you guys, I forget what the name was you mentioned, but you do have community-submitted models that have made it in the game.
Yeah. There's, I think, 2 people have contributed. In particular, Neri on our forums. And one of the things we really appreciate about him is he doesn't just create models for them, is he talks to the community about, okay, this is what I'm thinking of making next. This is how I create models. That he's left a lot of information for people who, if they ever want to create their own models, can learn how to do 3D modeling from the stuff that he's shared on the forums. So, blast you all.
Now, what about modding support? I know there's a couple mods on Supreme Ruler forums that I've seen. I think there's one which is like a what is it, like a quote-unquote realism project, where I think it adds in like actual orders of battle for each country, or tries to anyway. I haven't played it myself. That's the description I saw of it. But
Yeah.
what's the modding support like? If I tried to make a mod for this, what would be involved with trying to do that?
Well, almost everything for the game is moddable, because we have a tendency to store most of our data in plain text files. So it's quite easy for somebody to just take the files. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. but convenient. Oh, no, come on. Sorry. The fall of Pennsylvania has caused me some a moment
distress.
Well, because I have all sorts of units that are now in what is Georgia's territory, and I have to figure out again. They exit on their own because I don't have treaty with him, but yeah, so most of the files for the game are stored in plain text, so it would be very easy for a player to go in, change the value in a file. Now, the maps, when you're launching the game, it isn't taking all the data files and putting them together at once. It does what we call a cache file, which is basically takes a whole bunch of the data files and mashes them into what is essentially a save game file that is ready then for the player to launch. So if you wanted to change the inventory, let's say, of Texas and take away all their tanks for the next time Georgia's going to play, you could open up their order of battle file.
Why would you want to do that?
Zero out all of Georgia's tanks, save that file, and then in the cache directory of the game, you simply delete the cache for Shattered World. When you try and launch the game, it will go, oh, there's no cache file, I better make one. And it would then recompile all the data, including the changed file. And as soon as it was done, it would land in your save game folder. You just move it over to the cache folder. So creating files from scratch, like modding all that stuff, is something that is relatively accessible if people have done modding for something else. We also use our Gamepedia, that it used to be called the Supreme Wiki, that it used to be a Wikipedia. On Gamepedia, we've got all of our modding information has been stored there. So players can go there, read up on how to do it. There's fairly concise instructions. I'm curious. Sorry, I'm changing topics for a second. I have killed 7, lost 22. Not a good start. The one thing that players cannot yet change is the map editor tool has not been released publicly, officially. About 6 or 7 months ago, somebody in the community realized that we had released, that the map editor was part of the game folders, part of the game engine, and figured out how to launch the map editor. So it's now out there, but we've made it very clear. We're like, okay, we're happy you guys have found it, have fun with it, but
so it's not officially supported.
Exactly. It is unofficially released. That if players want to use it, go ahead. It is something that we are hoping to catch up on, that we'd like to get the map editor into a condition that we would feel comfortable releasing it to the public. That's always been one of our long-term goals, but it's tricky. A lot to be done. Hope that answered it. Sorry, I am definitely distracted because I'm like watching George on my board.
Texans are breathing down your neck.
They are. What am I going
Only
to
in the
choose?
nicest.
Well, you got some time. There's the supply needs to propagate through Pennsylvania before he's really a problem.
That doesn't really take long.
If it helps at all, his bank account is $28 billion in the hole.
Oh, that's good. That I can actually find out. All I need to do is let's see.
Yeah, but you didn't need it pointed out to you. It's like having a little spy going on here.
It's all good, man.
Yes.
Don't you know? Come on, man.
That is my greatest issue, is the fact that, yes, it's Texas's credit has sort of run a little thin.
You are the most indebted country on the map. I think it is interesting to note that right now, California has 40 billion, no, that's population, sorry, has a treasury of 212 million, which is actually not a whole lot. You're having a bit of money troubles too.
It's not, but I'm investing heavily in my infrastructure.
Okay. Yeah, I was as well. I'm trying to figure out. It's all for
Well,
me.
you're
It's all a
pretty
question
healthy,
of
man,
where do I build my last lines of defense?
I'm glad you have identified that they will be your last lines.
Here's a question that I don't think I could really answer because I've never played it, but is Supreme Ruler similar to Supreme Power 2?
To superpower.
Is that what it's called?
Superpower. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes
no.
and no. That now it's been over a decade since I played that game. Superpower tended to focus a little more on governance issues and region politics and that sort of element. And again, they had, I think, more like a Paradox game. They were provinces as opposed to hex by hex, the way we model the world, which definitely provides a different game experience. But we definitely have a lot in common, that we were both trying to model the real world. We had events. We were trying to make realistic military inventories. Definitely a lot of overlap. But I think ours is better. Again, totally unbiased.
Another question from the chat. Is Supreme Ruler 2020 an add-on / DLC for Supreme Ruler Ultimate, or a separate game altogether?
It is a separate
Supreme
game
Ruler
altogether. Yeah. Sorry, you were gonna
Well,
explain some of that, Bob?
I think there's a little bit of maybe there's some confusion on what exactly the products are. So Steam does have, like Supreme Ruler 2020, 1936, Cold War. Those are all separate games you can purchase on Steam. However, there is Supreme Ruler Ultimate, which has all of the titles, I think minus like Supreme Ruler 2010 and a couple others, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's kind of an all-in-one that you can purchase on Steam. So Supreme Ruler 2020 is not an add-on DLC for Supreme Ruler Ultimate. It is just a part of Supreme Ruler Ultimate. Then there's the Trump Rising.
It's worth pointing out that the UI is notably different. That it was, when we went from Supreme Ruler 2020 to Supreme Ruler Cold War, was the introduction of the UI style that we have now. That Supreme Ruler 2020 had a notably different UI. So, and some of the features were also slightly different, but the map era was the same. That the Supreme Ruler Ultimate modern map was a continuation of the development we had done in making a modern map for Supreme Ruler 2020. And that sort of is the history of it.
Yeah, so the only two DLCs that I'm aware of anyway, unless the secret project that they can't talk about turned out to be a DLC as well. Who knows? But there's Trump Rising, which is free. And that's a 2017 start that it adds in there. And then Great War, which came out. When did Great War come out?
August of last year.
I figured it almost been about a year. That's what I thought. Yeah, so those are the only two. Which Great War is the only one that you would have to purchase. And what's that running right now?
I don't remember. Eric, can you tell me how much Great War is right now?
I thought it's $19.95, $19.99.
$20 US?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the only DLCs. Otherwise, Supreme Ruler Ultimate is really, if you're looking to get into Supreme Ruler at all, I would strongly recommend Supreme Ruler Ultimate, since it has all the previous Supreme Ruler games, with the exception of like 2010 and then the 1982 one that George made many years ago.
Yes.
We still have, George has a TRS, it's a TRS-80?
Yeah, TRS-80.
A TRS-80 with a 5 1/4 floppy. And it's been quite a while since we fired the thing up, but we used to every now and then fire up the TRS-80, and it was a hot seat turn-based game. So it would be on one corner at the office, and like I'd get in the morning, I'd walk over to the computer, start the game, play my turn. Half an hour later, George wanders into the office, and I'm like, "It's your turn." And he'd wander over, he'd do his turn, and then he's like, "Okay." And then I'd work for a while, and then I'd get tired of what I'm doing. I'm like, "Okay," and I'd go play my turn and shout back at him, "Okay, you're next." So it would take us like 2 days to finish a game.
I have a scenario-based question for you guys with regards to Cold War. Are you guys considering adding the scenarios from Cold War to Supreme Ruler Ultimate? And I thought some of those were in there already, but I might have been wrong. I know Hanoi Hotel is in there at least, which is you're playing as Vietnam.
You're correct that some of them are. The ones that are not currently part of it would have to be entirely built from scratch. That there were some files that simply were not compatible with the way we were doing the way we intended to do things for the development of Supreme Ruler 1936. So that it ended up being an issue where we simply lost certain files. They could not be carried forward to the next version. I see all sorts of ticks and units moving up in ways I don't like.
And some for Great War. I think that means that they're asking for scenarios for Great War.
Well, we are working on, with the recent insider build that we had and the stuff that's been done for Great War, we did add a new fictional sandbox as opposed to a scenario called Brinkmanship, which basically goes back World War I. What if Franz Ferdinand had not been assassinated? And lets the players, so it means entirely different relationships, that Germany doesn't really have support of Austria-Hungary. Sorry, it's a two-part of what if Franz Ferdinand had not been assassinated, and what if Franz Josef had died early, making Franz Ferdinand the, is it Chancellor for Austria-Hungary?
Yeah, something like that.
Because some of the research that I had done in preparation for Great War, I discovered that when I have learned so much history, and I have no idea where I'm storing all this in my head. The Gavrilo Princip is the guy who assassinated him.
Assassin, yeah.
That when he assassinated Franz Ferdinand as a oh damn it, I almost had those guys home. By killing Franz Ferdinand, he killed the person most likely to help the Serbs. That while the stuff I have read says that while Franz Ferdinand was by no means less interested in subjugating the Serbians, he felt that the best way to deal with the Serbian issue was a degree of independence and just try and get them dealing with their own problems as opposed to making it Austria-Hungary's issue. But once he was assassinated, everybody else within the Austro-Hungarian leadership were very much of the opinion of, well, they would have said very, very nasty things about the Serbians and the Croats and pretty much everybody in that area. So, yeah, so we decided that it would be interesting to do a what if of the, oh, I wonder if I can, sorry. Thinking I need to send these guys.
Oh, it seemed very rude that California would declare war on me.
Oh, did he?
Well, I mean, you declared war on my trusted friend New York.
But I was your trusted friend Texas.
So,
well,
if you had mentioned
each other.
If you had mentioned to me that you were going to do that, I would have actually suggested you wait about 5 or 10 game days, because that was George's second declaration of war. Each time he makes a declaration of war, all the other AIs, basically at some point in their threads, they stop and go, should I declare war on that guy? Because you've declared war on him, that does have a bit of an effect on the rest of the world of going, oh, somebody's already dealing with this, I'll wait. So if you had waited maybe 5 or 10 days, we might have gotten another region to declare war on him, and then you could have still declared war on him. So it is possible sometimes to coax the AI into conflict, but the AI has been built that it understands how expensive war is, so it tends to avoid it when it can.
Ah. Are you planning some new geopolitical games? Another question from the chat.
We are making a PC game. That's about as far as we've gotten in terms of releasing information.
I don't think it was aimed specifically at about whatever new secret project you guys are working on. Because I know you guys have mentioned that you're hush hush about that. You're not releasing any info on that. I think it's probably more to see a broad, whether it's more add-ons for Supreme Ruler or new Supreme Ruler title or just a new geopolitical game in general. I think, have you guys thought about that?
Well, I mean, it is called Supreme Ruler Ultimate after all, even though we did release Great War after that.
then we released another one.
But
so you're going to make me tell that story again, that I very much remember being at the office, talking about the title for this new package one, and them saying, okay, it's going to be called Supreme Ruler Ultimate. And I was the one who went up to them and said, Ultimate means last, right?
But,
like, yeah.
But yeah, certainly, I mean, we are still working on content for both Ultimate and Great War, things like the, adjustments for the changes in geopolitical climate. Certainly keeping an eye on, for example, what's happening between Trump and North Korea to see if there's something we can release along those lines. At the moment, they're just having a happy party, but if that turns out to be a little more shooty, then we have just the game for that.
You're all over that one.
We're all over that one.
So I've got a question for you guys actually with regards to Supreme Ruler game versus realism, which is pretty simply, when you guys are creating the game and keeping in mind all the geopolitical goings-ons of the world, are you guys approaching it from, we want to make sure that this is as close to the geopolitical situation of the world as possible, or are you guys still trying to keep it as game playable as possible?
Definitely a bit of both. Often we will try for realism first. And an example of the type of things we run into is all the way back to Supreme Ruler 2020. When we released the game initially, we got a bit of flack from some people in the community who are Palestinian-born, saying, you're not recognizing Palestine in the game. Why aren't you? You should be doing this. And we ended up going back to the community and saying, the fact that we don't have Palestine as a playable region is not a indication that we are for or against the independence of Palestine. It's that we do not think that by January 2020, the situation will have been solved. That we try and anticipate what's going to work. And within that, if we see a certain thing, we're like, well, this could go this way or that way. But if it goes this way, that's going to make a hell of a game. Obviously, that's when we'll lean towards that sort of thing. But yeah, definitely a lot of looking at the realism and trying to see what's going to make good gameplay. Even to the point that if we see, I've had some of the people talk to us about, well, you've got some incorrect information about some military units here. And I'm like, I realize, but I've looked around and like 20 of the sources agree with us, 2 of them disagree with us. And they're like, well, I know, but those 2 are the ones that are right. Like, yeah, but it's 20 sources. We're going to go with the common opinion on most things because that's what a majority of the people are going to be looking for. And we just end up causing confusion amongst the majority of the players, despite the fact that there's a minority of players who know that, oh, look, they got it actually right. Sometimes you got to play to the commonality of what people are going to find.
Right, I got you.
So I'm feeling good about my defensive lines at the moment. And it's fun to see the new garrison. So one of the things that was implemented during the Great War's development was that the garrison units progress, that they don't just, they don't stay at a 1914 quality garrison unit as you're playing
action
through
rifles
it.
all the time.
Pretty much. So we managed to get a system in by which as you achieve certain technologies in the tech tree, those technologies cause your garrison units to be replaced by better quality units. Oh, can I catch that artillery out in the open?
Yeah, he was being a little bit slow about his retreat.
Okay, and our spotting can create some scary things. I'm like, oh, look, 2 pieces of artillery. I move half a hex. Oh, look, 12 tanks. Okay, that is not where I want to be.
You sure you don't want to be in front of the 12 tanks?
And really, all I had to do was hold long enough because I'm going to have to, like, go get my kids soon. I don't have to win, I just have to outlast.
There's another question here about, where'd it go? This is another scenario-based questions, which was any possible mid-Cold War starts for Sandbox. So, which right now, there's the 1949 start, which I think it starts with the Russia testing their nuclear weapon. I think is what that is right now. So I think they're talking about, like, is there going to be like a maybe a Cuban Missile start? Is there going to be like a 1980s start? I think that's what they're asking.
I would say that it is very unlikely, and I've talked about this on the forum a few times, that even a change of 3 game years, so we start in 1949, even trying to say, okay, we'll start in 1952, suddenly you have to change leaders in some cases, you have to update relationships, you have to change flags, you have to change the order of battle. Every era start is essentially a whole new game. That the amount of work that goes into it, it's not the type of thing that we can just bang out in a month. That the timeline for the Great War, creating the 1914 one, was, I think, that was about a 10-month development cycle, and 1914 order of battles are really easy. There's not a whole lot of units there. So it'd be fun to keep building Supreme Ruler games forever and ever and ever, but at a certain point, I know myself, I'm eager to start making some new stuff. I suppose
The
that's
supreme ruler is life, Chris.
yeah.